Many have tried to uncover the truth. Explorers, scientists, thrill seekers. But one by one, they vanish. Some are never seen again, their names swallowed by the jungle, their fates left to the whispers of the wind. Others return, but they are not the same. Their eyes, once filled with curiosity, now hold something else. Something hollow, something haunted. They speak in broken whispers, their voices trembling as if afraid the very air around them is listening. They tell stories that defy logic, stories of creatures that should not exist. Giant shadows that move without sound, eyes that glow in the darkness, figures that watch from the treetops, disappearing the moment you blink. They recall waking up in the middle of the night to a presence standing over them, feeling the weight of unseen hands pressing against their chests, hearing voices that do not belong to the living. Some refuse to speak at all, staring blankly at the world as if part of them never truly escaped. The jungle does not just take those who enter, it changes them. And for those who make it out, the real horror begins when they realize that something followed them home. Deep within the untouched wilderness, beyond the reach of civilization, lies a region so feared that even the bravest explorers hesitate to speak its name. The villagers who live on the outskirts of this jungle tell stories passed down for generations, warnings etched into their folklore like scars from a time long forgotten. They call it the Forbidden Zone, a place where nature does not obey the rules of man, where the air itself feels heavier, and where the trees seem to whisper secrets only the doomed can hear. For centuries, the legend of the cursed gorilla tribe has been a tale of both wonder and terror. According to the elders, this was once an ordinary group of gorillas, no different from any others that roamed the dense canopy. But something changed. Something unnatural. Some say it was the wrath of an ancient shaman who cursed them for reasons lost to time. Others believe they stumbled upon a secret they were never meant to find, a force hidden deep within the jungle that refused to let them leave. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. These are not ordinary creatures. Their eyes burn with an eerie glow, their howls send shivers down the spine, and their presence alone is enough to drive even the most rational minds to madness. Many have dismissed these stories as mere superstition, the wild imaginations of those who have never dared set foot beyond the tree line. But for those who have ignored the warnings, their fate has always been the same. Some go missing without a trace, their bodies never found, their screams swallowed by the dense foliage. Others return, but they are changed. They speak in hushed voices, afraid of something lurking just beyond sight. They claim to have seen the creatures up close, to have felt an unnatural presence watching them, studying them, deciding their fate. And then there are those who come back, only to vanish again, as if the jungle itself has reached out and reclaimed them. Despite the fear, despite the warnings, curiosity remains a dangerous force. There are always those who believe they will be the ones to uncover the truth, to go where no one else has dared, and return with answers. And so, the cycle continues. The jungle waits, silent, patient, knowing that sooner or later, someone new will come. Dr. Alex Carter had spent years chasing legends, unraveling the mysteries of the natural world, but this one was different. This wasn't just another expedition into the unknown. This was a journey into something that defied science itself. The stories of the cursed gorilla tribe had reached him through whispered accounts, vague reports, and the frantic confessions of those who had barely made it back alive. He had seen fear before, but never like this. The way the survivors spoke, the way their hands trembled, their eyes darted as if something unseen lurked in the shadows, made him question whether this was a place he truly wanted to find. But curiosity had always been his weakness. And so, with a team of researchers and a guide willing to take them only so far, he set off into the jungle, determined to uncover the truth. The first few hours were deceptively ordinary. The jungle was alive with the sounds of nature, chirping insects, distant calls of exotic birds, the occasional rustling of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. Sunlight filtered through the towering canopy, casting moving patterns on the damp earth beneath their boots. But as they ventured deeper, something began to change. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, as if the jungle itself was resisting their presence. The sounds of wildlife, once so vibrant, began to fade into an eerie silence. It wasn't the peaceful stillness of an undisturbed forest. It was an unnatural void, as if every living thing had sensed something approaching and knew better than to make a sound. Then came the first sign. Strange markings carved into tree trunks, symbols unlike anything Dr. Carter had seen before. They were crude yet deliberate, spirals and jagged lines that seemed to form a warning, though no one could understand what it meant. His guide, a man who had spent his entire life navigating these lands, refused to go any further. His face paled as he muttered something about the red-eyed ones and the point of no return. No amount of money, no promise of fame or discovery could persuade him to stay. Without another word, he turned back, leaving Dr. Carter and his team alone in the heart of the unknown. The deeper they went, the more the jungle seemed to close in around them. Vines twisted like grasping fingers. Ancient ruins hidden beneath layers of moss revealed themselves as remnants of a forgotten past. Then they found it. Scattered bones, picked clean, arranged in a way that sent a chill through the group. It was no accident. Something had placed them there. A message left behind by something that did not want them here. The realization settled over them like a heavy fog. They were being watched. A twig snapped. A shadow flickered between the trees. A low growl, deep and guttural, rumbled through the air. Dr. Carter turned slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. The jungle was no longer just a jungle. It was something else entirely, and whatever lurked in its depths had just noticed their arrival. The first night in the jungle was uneasy. The team set up camp in a small clearing, their equipment scattered around them as they tried to shake off the strange tension that had followed them since their guide abandoned them. The air was thick, humid, suffocating in a way that felt unnatural. The usual sounds of nocturnal creatures were absent. No insects chirping, no distant howls of predators, only the occasional rustling of leaves that seemed too deliberate, too controlled. It was as if the jungle itself was holding its breath, waiting. Dr. Carter sat by the flickering fire, staring into the darkness beyond the trees. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The others felt it too, though no one dared say it aloud. Cameras were set up, infrared scanners activated, but the screens showed nothing, just empty jungle. Still, the sensation of unseen eyes boring into them refused to fade. Then, just past midnight, it happened. A sound, low, guttural, unlike anything they had heard before. It wasn't the roar of a jaguar or the distant call of an ape. This was something else, something intelligent. The team froze, ears straining, breath held. Another sound followed, closer this time, a deep exhale that sent chills down their spines. Then the bushes rustled, leaves shifted, and from the shadows, a figure emerged. At first it looked like a gorilla, massive, towering, its muscular frame silhouetted against the firelight. But something was off. Its movements were too slow, too deliberate, as if it was studying them. And then they saw its eyes, glowing, burning like embers in the darkness. The team gasped, stumbling backward, whispering frantically to one another. The creature didn't charge, didn't make a sound beyond its slow, steady breaths. It simply stood there, watching. Another figure appeared, then another. More eyes, glowing in the darkness, surrounding them from all sides. The fire crackled, casting erratic shadows across the trees. But the creatures did not flinch. The team was trapped, frozen in place, caught between disbelief and terror. Dr. Carter reached for his camera, hands shaking, trying to capture what he knew no one would ever believe. But as he lifted the lens, the largest figure stepped forward. The moment its foot touched the ground, a strange vibration pulsed through the air, as if the jungle itself responded to its presence. And then, without warning, the fire went out. Darkness swallowed the camp in an instant. The fire, once their only source of light, had been snuffed out as if an unseen force had willed it away. The air grew thick, suffocating, pressing against their chests like an invisible weight. For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then, a sound, a deep guttural growl, closer than before, vibrating through the earth beneath them. Someone fumbled for a flashlight, but as the beam flickered on, it caught something horrifying. A towering figure standing just feet away, its glowing red eyes locked onto them, unblinking, unrelenting. The team erupted into chaos. Someone screamed. Another tripped over their own feet in the scramble to get away. Dr. Carter held his breath, frozen in place, his mind battling between the instinct to run and the desperate need to understand what he was seeing. The gorilla, or what should have been a gorilla, tilted its head, its breath slow and controlled, as if savoring the fear radiating from the group. Then, as if commanded by some unseen force, it took a step forward. The jungle responded. The trees trembled, vines rustled as if something unseen was moving through them, something big. More red eyes emerged from the darkness, blinking into existence like stars scattered through the void. But the worst was yet to come. One of the researchers, panic-stricken, turned to flee. He barely made it 3 steps before something shot out from the trees, a massive, shadowed hand, moving with impossible speed. It grabbed him, yanking him into the darkness with terrifying strength. His scream barely had time to escape before it was cut off, swallowed by the jungle. The remaining team members stumbled backward, pressing themselves against each other, their minds reeling, their bodies paralyzed by fear. Then one of them, eyes wide, mouth trembling, began to whisper. "They're not just watching us," he muttered, voice barely audible over the pounding of his own heartbeat. "They're deciding." Dr. Carter finally snapped into action, reaching for his equipment, desperate to document what was happening. His fingers trembled as he hit record, his breath shaky. But the moment he lifted the camera, the creatures reacted. A deafening, bone-chilling howl erupted from the largest figure, shaking the very ground beneath them. It was a sound of warning, of anger, or something worse. Then, without warning, the jungle moved. The jungle erupted into chaos. Branches snapped like brittle bones, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the shadows themselves seemed to twist and pulse with life. The team scattered, instinct taking over as they ran blindly into the darkness. Heavy footsteps pounded behind them, too fast, too deliberate. Whatever these creatures were, they weren't just watching anymore. They were hunting. Dr. Carter's breath came in ragged gasps as he crashed through the dense foliage, vines clawing at his arms like unseen hands trying to pull him back. His mind screamed for logic, for reason, for any explanation that made sense. But there was none. The legends were real. The cursed gorilla tribe existed, and they had just made the worst mistake possible, disturbing them. A scream tore through the jungle, cut short as something massive barreled past him in the darkness. One of his team members. Gone. The others weren't far behind, their panicked cries echoing through the trees. Then, another sound. A deep, inhuman growl, so close it sent a wave of ice through his veins. He turned, his flashlight shaking in his hands, and for the briefest moment, he saw it. A towering figure, its body covered in thick, matted fur, its eyes burning like embers, its mouth slightly open, revealing sharp, unnatural teeth. This was no ordinary gorilla. This was something else, something cursed. A massive hand swung toward him. He ducked, barely missing the impact as the force sent leaves and dirt flying. His heart pounded, adrenaline blurring his vision. He had to move. He had to survive. The jungle was shifting around him, the towering trees now feeling like walls, closing in, trapping him inside. The red-eyed creatures stalked through the darkness, their glowing eyes slicing through the thick mist like beacons of doom. There was no way out, no path back. Then, out of nowhere, a voice, low, almost guttural, speaking words in a language he didn't understand. The creatures halted, the air shifted. It was as if someone, had given them an order, and just like that, the pursuit stopped. The jungle fell silent once more. Dr. Carter didn't dare move, his pulse thundering in his ears. The largest figure stood just feet away, its piercing gaze locked onto his. Then slowly, it raised one massive hand and pointed to the ground. No, not the ground. To the bones scattered across the jungle floor, arranged in symbols too precise to be random. A warning? A message? Or something far worse? He didn't get the chance to figure it out. The creatures began to retreat, their glowing eyes fading into the blackness one by one, until nothing remained but the ghostly whispers of the wind. The jungle had spared him. But why? He didn't know. And perhaps he never would. One thing, however, was clear. He had seen too much. He had come seeking answers, but now he was leaving with something else entirely. A curse. Dr. Carter stumbled through the jungle, his breath ragged, his body weak from exhaustion and fear. The creatures were gone, vanished into the depths of the forest as if they had never existed. But the weight of their presence still clung to the air, thick and suffocating. Every step felt heavier, as if unseen hands were still reaching for him, reminding him that he had trespassed where no man should have. The remains of his team were nowhere to be found. Some had been taken, others had simply disappeared, swallowed by the jungle without a sound. The few who survived clung to each other in silence, their eyes hollow, their minds broken by what they had witnessed. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. They had ventured into the heart of a legend and barely escaped with their lives. But survival did not feel like victory. It felt like a warning. As the first hints of dawn crept through the treetops, the jungle slowly began to awaken. Birds called out. Insects buzzed, the world around them returning to normal as if nothing had ever happened. It was as if the night itself had been a nightmare, a twisted illusion meant to terrify and torment. But Dr. Carter knew better. He knew the truth. And as he reached the edge of the jungle, stepping into the light for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he made a promise to himself. He would never speak of this again. Some secrets were meant to stay buried. Some mysteries meant to remain unsolved. He had learned the hard way what happened in the jungle. And he knew, beyond any doubt, that it would stay in the jungle.